We got Andrew Tate versus a male LGBTQ activist. So a gay dude. Let's get right into this one. This
water boy for patriarchy and capitalism and whatnot, right? And sort of regressive ideas about manhood, and which is why the teenage audience like consumes it so much. You know, you got these young boys that are like grappling with feelings of powerlessness, and you come in and offer them like the ultimate machismo ideas of like how to be a man, but you're so off base, bro. It's like, it's tragic, really.
So you think that I am inspiring the youth of today, the masculine youth of today, to become men, and you think that's a negative thing? Why?
No, I don't think you're inspiring them to become men, because like real men are in touch with their emotions and their vulnerability and don't need to be like wielding and taking power. Real men are self-aware. and
self-aware, like having pink hair, a Britney Spears t-shirt with a receding hairline. Brother, just let it go. Let the hair go. Go with the baldy, bro. It's all right. Just let it go. I understand it's tragic, but you got to just let that go. You can't dye it pink.
You come in offering them like somebody that they can follow.
You should follow this guy.
Like the
This
savior,
guy is a better guy to follow.
Badass.
If you're a man who's in touch with his strength and his masculine power, why does that mean you're not capable of reflecting inwards and being self-aware? They're not mutually exclusive.
That's a great question.
Well, apparently for you they are, though, because on the one hand you talk about how you made your first million while exploiting women on webcams.
Incorrect.
And then you post on the Instagram post about how you and your brother are going to bring purity back to women. So yeah, you absolutely lack self-awareness, because you yourself admit you made your initial money on sort of like you profited off the supposed impurity of women around sex.
All right. So first thing, the word exploiting is an incorrect use of language, because I've never exploited anyone in my life.
Well, let me ask you this. When you made your first million with the women in the webcams, how many of the women who are on those webcams earning for you, how many of them are millionaires now?
The ones who made millions are also millionaires. It was 50%. It was 50-50.
You know what I'm saying?
I would argue the point here, sir. I would argue the point here that when a girl worked for me, it was 50-50. If you work for nearly any other business in the world, you do not get 50% of the takings. If you go work at McDonald's and you ring up a register for an hour, you do not get 50% of that register. So that is a lie. Most companies pay you less than 1%. So to sit here and say that I was exploiting people is absolute fallacy. So that's the
I want to paint a moral consistency, and I'm not defending Andrew Tate here. I'm sure there's somebody in the comments right now sweating and they can't wait to get it out. So I'm not defending Andrew Tate, but as far as what I've seen as of late, Andrew Tate hasn't been convicted of anything that he was accused of. Now, y'all can correct me in the comments if I'm wrong, but that's not even where I'm going with it. I want y'all to follow the moral consistency. If Andrew Tate is exploiting these women because he had this webcam business where they split 50-50 on the profit, why, and that's seen as exploitation, why aren't platforms like OnlyFans, who I would assume causes significantly more damage because they exploit significantly more women with the same business model, essentially, it's just a little bit more digital. Why aren't platforms like OnlyFans and P-Hub targeted with the same animosity that somebody like Andrew Tate is targeted with? And I'm just painting a moral consistency here. So if you believe that what Andrew did was exploitation, then why aren't these platforms also considered as exploitation? And I'm going to take it even one step further. What role do the women play? Because I'd argue that if Andrew Tate had 10 women, let's just say, I'm just going off the top of my head, Andrew Tate had 10 women working underneath him. Think about the amount of men that each individual woman exploited. So what role do those women play? And there are so many times where women will play active roles in these things like sex work or like human trafficking in some instances, like Ghislaine Maxwell or Ghislaine Maxwell, however y'all say her name. There are so many times where women will actively be participants, and then when the cars start to collapse, they put their hands up and go, they forced me to do it. But if Andrew's exploiting the women, then these platforms are also exploiting women, and they should be targeted with the same level of animosity. And the women are also exploiting the men, and they should be targeted with the same animosity. So if this is exploitation, everybody's exploiting everybody at this point. That's just a moral consistency.
That's the first fallacy. I've let you talk. Now it's my turn. That's the first fallacy. The second fallacy is this whole patriarchy bullshit you're saying that are outdated ideas of masculinity.
Yeah.
The idea of patriarchy is not an outdated idea of masculinity. Perhaps in the West, in a declining empire, as we've already discussed on this stream, in an empire which is in absolute decline, you can have men who sit here and think there's absolutely nothing necessary about masculinity in the modern world, and that you don't need to be strong or brave or any of these things. You can sit around and and cry and you're still a man. That is not true in most places on the planet. In most places on the planet, men need to be capable and competent, because if they don't, they do not survive.
Right.
And I'll tell you something now, sir. I'll tell you something else now. You will sit here and talk right now about the patriarchy and how you can be in touch with your feelings and all this bullshit. The second you're physically assaulted or physically threatened, the first thing you do is you call a toxically masculine police officer to turn up with a weapon to protect you, because you cannot protect yourself.
Right.
You are not against the idea of masculine power. You're not against the idea of men who have masculine imperatives to defense. All you've done is outsource it to someone else to do at the end of a phone call because you're too scared to do it yourself.
Yep.
So you're fucking lying. You're lying.
No, that's absolutely incorrect.
Yeah, these types of dudes, they want to paint their weakness as virtue because they don't want to get strong. So instead of getting strong because maybe they feel like they're not capable, I don't know what that is, they try to paint their weakness as some type of virtue to virtue signal to women, and it just doesn't work. Everybody sees through it. The women don't like it. The men don't like it. He's just virtue signaling because he knows he is incapable.
You want to do them yourself, and you hope everyone else does them for you so you can sit around and play fucking video games.
See, the point I posited.
Let me go back a little bit.
That's absolutely incorrect.
You don't want to do them yourself, and you hope everyone else does them for you so you can sit around and play fucking video games.
Right.
See, the point I posit is there's more than just physicality with men. And you talk about exploitation. You absolutely exploit people with your affiliate links. That is exploitation. Like I, as well as Bucky and Clicks, know, anybody who's an influencer knows that affiliate links are total bullshit, because basically you give an affiliate link to somebody who promotes you and he makes a little money off of it, but you're getting free advertising.
But see, what he just said just adds more to my point. OnlyFans has an affiliate program. The OnlyFans affiliate program allows individuals to earn commissions by referring users to creators, typically through affiliate links. So if you have that animosity for something like, or for someone like Andrew Tate, why isn't that same animosity targeted to a company like OnlyFans if you have the moral consistency? I mean, what's objectively worse, the 5 or 10 girls that Andrew Tate might have had on cam, or the 2.8 to 3.4 million women on OnlyFans currently? So yeah, if you're going to be morally consistent, you should also be talking about trying to take down these websites, because if you believe it's exploitation, why is it seen as empowering by feminists for people to sign up for things like OnlyFans? It just doesn't make sense. There's no moral consistency.
That's exploitation. No influencer is going to take an affiliate link position, because it's absolute exploitation. Like, you practically exist on it. Now, the idea of manhood is you can talk about like purely physical strength. Like, first off, if I get assaulted, I'm probably not going to call the police, okay? Because the police aren't actually very adept at actually solving crimes.
He's
right?
lying.
They don't function very well in the actual solution of crimes. They show up later and just sort of muck up the business.
Correct.
Right?
So
okay, we get it. Police bad. Everybody just going to clap for you because police bad. But if somebody assaults him, he's definitely calling the police. Let's just be honest here. He's being disingenuous.
I agree with that. So how would you defend yourself in the effect of an assault? You just lay there and take it?
Well, so it would depend on the assault. I would probably remove myself from the situation, right?
Obviously, that's not something that's going to be applicable to the scenario we're doing here on the stream. We're not going to pretend you can run away, because that just defeats the point of the question.
Well, what are we here to talk about some hypothetical assault?
No, we're not here to talk about
99% of Americans never even encounter a violent crime.
We're not here to talk about
this whole
hypothetical
machismo
assault.
thing is like nonsense.
We're not here to talk about hypothetical assaults. Here to talk about the hypothetical paradigms and ideas around masculinity, because you started this conversation saying that the patriarchy and capitalism and all this bullshit. And I'm sitting here saying to you, live in a very soft society. You're completely correct. 99%
incorrect.
You live in a soft society. If you were the same person in most places on the planet, you would have had your ass beat because you are a weakling. And weaklings are not respected. Let me tell you something, my friend, I'll let you talk afterwards. Never in human history, in any single civilization, in any single empire across the history of Earth, have men been celebrated for their weakness.
Right.
Ever once.
Right.
It doesn't matter if you were an Aztec or the Mao dynasty, from China all the way to South America. In every single history book you can read, men who were respected and men who had stories written about them were written about them because they were strong. Weak men have never been respected. Weak men have never mattered. For you to come along and say, I think it's okay to be weak, is fine. That is your initiative. That is your decision. But the reason you have done that is because you lack brave. You lack balls.
No,
you lack bravery.
Lack balls. Dude, I have more balls than you'll ever have, boss.
And it's funny because he said that Andrew Tate was only talking about the physicality of masculinity, and really Andrew's talking about grandiose ideas like bravery, which I believe to be brave and to have courage, you have to have control over your emotions. Best believe if somebody kicks in my door, my heart's going to pump, and naturally I'm going to feel fight or flight. Me being a fast person, I used to run track, I could probably flight, but because I have a wife and a kid, I would have to control my emotion, and even though I'm afraid, I would have to still go forth and try to fight this dude off in some way as a last line of defense. So yeah, it's not even just about the physicality of being strong. It's about the mentality. You could be physically strong, but if you don't got a fight mentality, or if you don't got a mentality to stand up for yourself, you could still get bullied. And I think that Andrew Tate should have asked him, number one, he should have channeled it into sexual assault statistics, because feminists and these types of people, they love to talk about how rampant sexual assault is. He brought up the fact that most Americans don't experience violence. He should have asked, okay, well, what about sexual assault? Well, these are the statistics on sexual assault. Well, what if your girlfriend got sexually assaulted and you was with her? What you gonna do then? You gonna run? Because usually guys aren't strong for themselves. It does help to have confidence. It does feel good to be able to walk around knowing you can defend yourself. But usually men want to be strong to protect the people around them. So in the case of your girlfriend or your wife or your boyfriend, everything's weird now. In the case of your boyfriend or girlfriend, whatever, ending up in a situation like that, what you going to do? You going to run? Who you going to call? Ghostbusters? No, you got to step up and be brave, and that means controlling your emotions. So yeah, no, you have to have control over your emotions to be a masculine man, for sure.
Calling emotional strength and emotional vulnerability, you're defining it as weakness, but it's not.
All forms of strength are important. You're saying
it's not.
Yes, it is. Physical strength is just as important as emotional strength.
Emotional strength is actually more powerful than physical strength. Because the fact of the matter is, no matter how physically strong you are, somebody bigger could come along and beat your ass. But it's emotional strength that helps you survive the ass beating.
You're right.
You're
right. I know what I'm right. You're right. That's a good point. You're saying so when someone comes along to assault you, you won't call the police afterwards and you won't fight back. You'll lay in a ball, you get an ass kicking, but you're emotionally strong enough to just deal with the fact that you got an ass whooping in front of everyone.
No, that's why he should have brought up the perspective of somebody else that he loves being affected, because in that case, you can't just lay down and take it. You either have to defend that person or you're going to just be a coward. It is what it is.
And that's fine. And everyone should be like you. And that, you know what we call,
I'm not saying
people like you are called in most places in the world. People like you are called in most places in the world. They're called victims. We're called prey.
Studs.
Yeah,
we're a prey.
We're called studs.
And let me tell you something. When I inspire men to grow up and be their biggest, strongest version of themselves, emotionally, mentally, physically, in every single realm, that is not a negative thing. There's nothing wrong with a man being big and strong. And let me tell you one more thing. We're sitting here talking to professional video game players. You're a professional Fortnite player yourself.
I am.
I don't know how the game works. I've never played the game.
And I was a professional musician and a director. I've done a great many things.
Perfect, good. And you're obviously a successful, smart individual. You're obviously mentally intelligent, right? I'm not talking about. I'm not saying that just because someone's strong that they don't have to be mentally adept. I'm not saying that somebody doesn't have to be emotionally adept just because they're strong. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that physical strength is also an important thing. But let's look at the video game Fortnite, which I've never played. It might be incorrect. But if you have stats on your character, you're going to try and max out your strength character. You're not going to have a character which is weak. Every single person, if they're given a video game character and said choose what statistics you want, is going to click max strength every single time, and then they're going to go back into the real world and pretend strength doesn't matter. Strength does matter. The difference is in the real it's hard to achieve, and because it's hard to obtain, it's the ostrich problem. You don't want to accept that it's hard to do. You don't want to go through the pain to get it, so you want to pretend it doesn't matter.
Exactly.
Just because you don't want to go through the bullshit it requires to be a physically dangerous individual does not mean physical dangerous individuals are not respected by society. And I'll tell you one more thing, my friend. One more thing. If me and you were to stand side by side in front of 100 women, in front of 100 fucking police officers, 100 fucking enemies who want to kill us, whatever it is, they would all choose to fuck with you before they choose to fuck with me. True. Because they'd look at me and I have a certain status and a certain presence which comes from my physical stature. Not just my capability, but because of the things I've gone through to become this physical specimen of man. They know I'm not the kind of guy who you really want to mess with. They look at you and go, he is a victim.
And one of the interesting parts about masculinity that's super graceful, at least in my opinion, is, well, and maybe this just comes from my perspective of it, but I don't even care if you lose. You just have to be willing to fight. If you have an opinion or something happened to you to the point where you feel like you're so disrespectful or disrespected that it's time to fight, you have to be willing to fight. Win, lose, or draw, it's your willingness to fight. Laying down on the ball and just getting stomped out and then crying and getting back, you know what I'm saying? That's not virtuous to me. It's your willingness to fight. I can respect a man that loses a fight because he was still willing to defend what he believed was important to him, whether that be his respect, his opinion, whatever that may be, his girlfriend, whatever that may be, his willingness to ball his fists up and stand toe-to-toe with another guy. I can respect that, win, lose, or draw.
That's what you look like, my friend, and it's your willingness choice.
See, that's just it, though. The only reason they would choose you in that element is because of the patriarchal fucking male-dominated society.
Here we fucking go. Here we go.
All right. Here's the deal, Andrew.
This is fun. No.
Hey, Andrew, listen to me.
From history that wasn't patriarchal. Name a society from history that was not patriarchal.
See, listen to me, though. That is why people like yourself are bugging and going into hyper mode right now, because society's changing.
It's not because of the patriarchy. Whether a patriarchy or a matriarchy, there will always be bad people who want to exploit other people, and usually those people target weak people because weak people can't defend themselves. And it's up for men to be strong people in order to defend weak people from those mean people. So the more strong people you have, the less mean people can attack weak people. That's what it's all about.
Society is changing.
I'll tell you why, my friend. I'll tell you why we cannot name a single society in history across the entire planet that was not patriarchal. Because patriarchal societies are optimized to survive. Right. When things get difficult, when people are put in survival situations, we naturally revert to our gender roles. I'll tell you something. If we were all on a ship and the ship got shipwrecked, the men would start building and digging and hunting, and the women would start gathering and doing what women are naturally adept at. Because when it comes down to survival, you have to do what you are most competent at. And men are more competent at certain things, and females are more competent at certain things. I'm not saying
not all men. Not all men, and not all females.
And it's something that interesting. Throughout history, humans have consumed more calories through gathering and farming and things like that, and women were huge in agriculture and early humanity. It's so much so to the point now where women can see different colors than men. So when your wife is holding up a dress and she's like, which color or which color looks like this, you can't tell the difference, but she literally sees two different colors. It's because throughout history, when women were gatherers, we were the hunters, they were the gatherers, the difference between red and orange is red could have been life or death. So women have literally adapted to see more colors because of this history and the female involvement in gathering. Look at this from Psychology Today. Women have larger color vocabularies than men, but scientists say that women are actually seeing more color gradations than men. I believe that's how you say it, gradations. This phenomenon has been played out between men and women time and time again, from selecting clothing to disagreeing at the paint store about whether one hue of blue looks more purple than the other. So yeah, women have literally adapted to being gatherers. So if we were shipwrecked and we were stranded on an island, women would probably start to gather because that's their strong suit. And men would probably start to build because that's our strong suit. Let's just be honest.
Patriarchal societies are more competitive than any other type of society because society functions better as a patriarchy. So the reason you cannot name a single society in history that was not a patriarchy is because all of the societies, and I'm sure there were some, which were not patriarchal, were destroyed by patriarchal societies. They were wiped off the face of the planet because they are not competitive.
There haven't been any yet.
Books to read. They do not have monuments to find. And the point I'm making is that in the harsh reality of ultra competitiveness, only patriarchal societies can survive. So the reason you cannot name one from history is because all the ones that tried this idea that you're trying to purport were destroyed in real time. True. And in the West, in America, as we stand right now in America, which I wouldn't even call it a patriarchal society because it isn't, because females have more rights under the law than men.
Oh my God, bro.
They do. And I'm telling you now,
so clueless.
As America falls apart and the patriarchy is disintegrated, all that's going to happen is that other countries like Russia, like China, like countries which are still patriarchal, will remain more competitive than the West. And you're not going to fix the world. America's just going to end up a third world shithole. So throwing the fucking patriarchy away is going to fix a fucking thing. You live in a clown world, my clown world.
No, I don't. I mean, I do live in a clown world because there are people like you that are sitting there like pushing this inane philosophy. So yeah, I get it. I accept that. But first off, we haven't seen a non-patriarchal society yet. We're definitely moving toward it. And if you want to look at America and look at some of the problems with America, like what problems do we have? Well, there's an enormous wealth gap. You mentioned the Roman Empire earlier. The Roman Empire didn't fall because of laziness. It fell because of overconfidence, because of an income gap between the richest and the poor, and because of political corruption. All three things that are sort of happening in America right now. So absolutely, America could fall, but it's not because men were turning soft, right? The idea of men being soft, the idea of men being soft, Andrew, is a battle cry of men who see that purely physical stature is no longer the only defining quality. Because like you said, they could line me and you up, and all those brutes like the cops or somebody looking for pure strength would choose you to defend them. But anybody who was from a marginalized group that was looking for an emotional defender, those people would pick me, right?
Yeah, these types of people have gotten very comfortable. I'm still black, right? I'm black. So I'm a part of a marginalized group, and I'm not choosing him for anything. I wouldn't trust him to run a lemonade stand. If I'm looking for like some type of emotional support, I guess I have a wife for that. I'm sorry, but nobody's picking him for anything.
I wouldn't pick the muscular guy because they know that I have the inner strength to actually have an openness and a vulnerability that can.
Why? Because you're weak and you don't have physical strength? Why can't you have physical strength and mental strength and understand your emotions and be able to control your emotions and channel the emotions that you need for any specific time in every specific scenario? Because that's what we would consider a masculine man to be able to do.
Relate to them, and that can help them find that empowerment in themselves. I don't want to train people to be sheep.
All
you know what I mean?
Who says I'm not talking
we go to your Instagram page and you talk about being the Messiah and all this other BS. You want people to follow you like you're some sort of like deity, boss. And that's actually a sign of your own weakness at work, right? That's coming from your own trauma, your own unhealed.
Look, ladies, I know he's physically strong, but I'm emotionally strong. You guys should care about me more because I'm more emotionally strong. I understand that he has physical capabilities, but I'm emotionally strong, and that's what's important.
Trauma.
Firstly, the fact you think that you're talking to marginalized people more than me, it doesn't even make sense.
Yeah.
Because I'm talking to groups of people, you're talking to groups of people, and both of them includes marginalized communities. Secondly, the fact that I am actually mixed race, that I grew up in the south side of Chicago with my father.
Absolutely.
I know more about marginalized communities than you do, because you are as white as they fucking come, and you're sitting here talking about marginalized communities to a marginalized person.
Absolutely. But let me ask you,
that's
never
what
woke up and go, I'm brown, so I had to find this white guy with pink hair to fight for me. I woke up and fought for myself. And that is the point. You know when you fight for yourself when you're a man. That requires all forms of power, whether it be emotional, mental, and physical. You to sit here telling men they should be as weak as possible and sitting around doing fucking nothing is not good for society as a whole. And there's nothing wrong with patriarchal society.
I'm not advocating for weakness. Like, I'm advocating for people to heal and to heal their trauma, and not use their trauma like you do and then aim it at select groups of people in order to gain power and money, right, and status, so you can walk around with a deity, right?
I think that all men, if you're a good man, you're going to have a traumatic life. That's part of being a man. And I think
I think it's not even a part of being a man. It's a part of being a human being on the planet. Okay. You're going to have a traumatic life,
sure,
right? But you got to heal the trauma. The trauma doesn't make you unless you heal it. If you don't heal it, you go around, say, dumping it on women, right?
See, the problem with these types of people is they believe that the only way young men can heal their trauma is by crying and having a sense of helplessness. And really, what you're supposed to do when it comes to trauma, what really helps heal trauma is making young men feel capable of preventing the trauma from happening again. Being able to prevent the trauma from happening again also empowers you and makes you feel better. Just crying about it doesn't help. If your son gets bullied, don't let him just sit there and cry. Put him in MMA, put him in boxing, put him in jiu-jitsu, put him in wrestling, put him in football, get him moving, get him active. Make him so that he feels like he can control his own destiny and he's not just a victim to the circumstances around him, because young men learn very quickly that nobody's coming to save them, so you can't be a victim of your circumstances as a young man. When you just sit around and cry, there ain't nobody coming to save you as a young man. Young women can cry because if they cry for long enough, eventually somebody's going to come and help them solve their problem. But for young men, people will literally watch you starve and die on the side of the road. So if you're not capable of helping yourself in this world, and you need to learn this very early, then you just going to be helpless and miserable. So you understand very quickly that you have to be capable of solving your own problems. So if you want young men to have emotional control, Well, you don't just tell them to sit around and cry. You tell them and you teach them how to fix their problems so that they can feel capable and empowered in themselves. The problem with these type of people is they believe that because a small minority of men are violent, if young men were just like young women, we could get rid of all of the violence. So if young men don't express their emotions just like young women express their emotions, then they must be defective human beings, when really we're just biologically different.
By waltzing around talking about how you got to protect women, you got to get a cut of her OnlyFans and all this because you own her private parts. That's nonsense, bro. That's nonsense. That's your trauma speaking.
It depends how you heal the trauma, right? And when I said that being a trauma is part of being a good man, you said it's part of being a human. I agree, but I think you can be a very, very good woman with a good heart, and you can be a good person. You don't need a traumatic life to be a good woman. However, to be a good man, you need to have a traumatic life, because any man who's not had, I'll tell you why. Let me answer. Any man who's not had difficulty, any man who's not gone through something that's difficult is not very good at being a man, because when shit hits the fan, people turn to the nearest man in the room and say, what is the solution? Someone just broke in the house, you go to the man. Fucking there's a natural disaster, a hurricane, you go to the man. There's a war, you go to the men. So men who have not been through trauma are not very good at being men because they're not capable of dealing with trauma.
And we organize incompetency. Like, you'll have these women sometimes I see on TikTok, they'll be like, you'll know the man that's the leader of the group by this and this and that. And usually male groups don't really have a leader per se. Usually we have just different people that are competent at different things. Like, I got a buddy that's really good with guns. If we go to the gun range, he's the leader in that moment. I have really good physical prowess. So maybe if we go to the gym, I might, because I know more about it, I might be the leader in that moment. So we usually even have our friends, we organize our groups in levels of competency. And when a task comes that needs to be done, the person who's the most competent in it is the leader in that moment. There's generally not really a leader in male groups like some ladies might think.
Wait, so pause right there though, Andrew, because you said when you go to war, you go to the men, but the only reason you have a war is because of men and their lack of awareness about their own feelings. That's why war exists in the first place.
So you're saying
if you had more women leaders, we wouldn't even have war.
Okay, so
if we had more women leaders, we wouldn't even have war. Men literally are responsible for war by a lack of emotional awareness.
Usually wars start over resources because resources are finite, not because men can't control their emotions. Something that these types of people don't understand is that the underlying principle of nature is violence. If to eat something, you have to be more capable of violence than that thing. To have resources and to protect your resources, you have to be more capable of violence. That's one of the reasons we fund so much of our defense program and we put so much money as a country into our defense program, because we understand that you have to be capable of protecting and gaining resources. And even if there were female leaders, there are only finite resources, so people would still go to war.
Let's make this the final point before we move on. You just said that if all the leaders were women, we wouldn't even have war.
I said if we had more women leaders, yes, there would be less war.
The fact that you hate your own gender so much is quite amazing to me. But actually,
I don't hate my own gender.
Another point.
See, why do you? Let
me tell you why you're wrong.
No, you don't get to gaslight me and tell me I hate my own gender just because I'm displaying a version of manhood that you're uncomfortable looking at. You don't get to say I hate my gender.
I don't give a fuck
that I'm weak, because I present a version of manhood that has struggled just like you, that has conquered just like you, but lives outside the idealized patriarchy that was sold to me. You don't get to gaslight me because you're uncomfortable with the type of man that I am.
You love men.
He thinks that people are bothered because he's weak. Nobody cares if you're weak. I don't have a problem with that. But you promoting to young men that it's okay for them to also be weak because you're weak, I have a problem with that for sure.
Men, cool. The point I'm making is you're saying that the world wouldn't have a war.
Dude, you are backed up against the wall.
Wait. No, chill. Let Tate have his final statement, then we're going to wrap this up and get someone else.
I'm in here right now. I just got to fix my camera. One second.
Hassan, let's go, man. I appreciate you.
I'm interested in seeing what the chat thinks. The reason you're totally wrong saying that the world would have less war if there was no female leaders is because if you actually ask anybody who's been in the corporate world for long enough, the companies that have the most arguments, the most difficult corporate structures to deal with, in fact, even if you ask most women, they say, I don't like having a woman boss. I'd rather work for a man. When you have a whole bunch of women in charge, it's nothing but a fucking bitch fest and it's a shit show. Every single fucking person who's ever worked in corporate knows that. Every single person who's ever worked in the world knows that women actually, as beautiful as they are, and they're good at lots of different things, they would they would prefer to work for a male boss because it's a stronger, more clear leadership structure. Having a bunch of women in charge of countries is not going to make a fucking peaceful world. And the fact you believe that shows your entire mental model's fucked.
Yeah, regardless of if you like them or not, Andrew's just right here.